Marcus Chen's hands trembled as he straightened his tie for the fifth time. Sitting alone in the upscale restaurant with its crystal chandeliers casting soft amber light across white tablecloths. He was 42 years old, a single father who hadn't been on a date in 7 years, and right now he was certain he was about to make the biggest fool of himself. His phone buzzed with another encouraging text from his 13-year-old daughter, Emma. "Dad, you deserve this." Stop being nervous. But how could he not be nervous when the matchmaker had described his blind date as accomplished, beautiful, and looking for something real? Marcus had almost canceled 3 times that morning alone. What Marcus didn't know, couldn't possibly know, was that sitting just 2 tables away, a young woman in an elegant wheelchair was waiting for her own blind date, arranged by her overbearing father who refused to believe his daughter could find love on her own terms. And in the next 10 minutes, a simple mistake would change both their lives forever. If you believe in second chances, in unexpected kindness, and in stories that remind us what really matters in life, please hit that like button, share this video, and subscribe to our channel. Your support means everything, and this story is one you won't want to miss. Marcus checked his watch again. 7:15. His date was 15 minutes late. He'd arrived early, of course, because that's what responsible people did, what good fathers taught their daughters to do. The waiter had already refilled his water twice, each time with a sympathetic smile that made Marcus feel even more pathetic. He was about to pull out his phone to check if he'd gotten the restaurant name wrong when he noticed her. A woman in a black dress wheeling herself through the entrance with practiced grace, scanning the room with dark, intelligent eyes. Their eyes met for just a moment, and something sparked. She looked away quickly, seeming to search for someone else. But Marcus felt it, that inexplicable pull he hadn't experienced since his late wife. Sarah had smiled at him across a college library 14 years ago. He watched as the woman spoke briefly to the hostess, then began navigating between tables. And then, in what he would later describe as fate's strange sense of humor, she started wheeling directly toward him. Marcus stood up automatically, the way his mother had taught him, the way he'd taught Emma. The woman stopped at his table, looking slightly confused but offering a tentative smile. "Are you Daniel?" she asked, her voice soft but steady, with an undertone of hope and resignation mixed together in equal measure. Marcus should have said no. He should have explained that he was waiting for someone named Jennifer, that there must be some mistake. But something made him hesitate. Maybe it was the vulnerability in her eyes despite her composed exterior. Maybe it was the way her hand gripped the arm of her wheelchair just a little too tightly, revealing her own nervousness. In that split second, Marcus made a decision that would have seemed insane to anyone else. "Yes," he lied, his heart pounding. "You must be my date." Relief and something else, something like cautious joy, flooded her face. "I'm Sophia," she said, extending her hand with the kind of confidence that comes from years of having to prove yourself to a world that underestimates you. "I'm sorry I'm late." Traffic was impossible, and accessible parking is always a nightmare downtown. As Marcus helped her settle at the table, adjusting a chair to make room for her wheelchair, he felt the full weight of his impulsive lie settling on his shoulders. What was he doing? This was someone else's date, someone else's chance at connection. But when Sophia smiled at him, really smiled with genuine warmth that reached her eyes, he couldn't bring himself to confess. Not yet. Just a few minutes, he told himself. Just long enough to not hurt her feelings, and then he'd explain the mix-up. But those few minutes stretched into an hour, and that hour into the most genuine conversation Marcus had experienced in years. Sophia told him about her work. She was deliberately vague, mentioning business management without elaborating, and her passion for adaptive sports programs for children with disabilities. Marcus found himself opening up about Emma, about the fear and love that consumed him as he tried to be both mother and father to a teenage daughter navigating a world without the woman who should have been there to guide her. Sarah died when Emma was 6. Marcus heard himself saying, surprised by how easily the words came. Brain aneurysm. One morning she was making pancakes, singing along to the radio, and by that afternoon... He stopped, swallowing hard. I'm sorry, that's probably too heavy for a first date. Sophia reached across the table, her hand covering his. "It's not too heavy," she said firmly. "Life is heavy. Pretending it isn't doesn't make us more attractive or more dateable. It just makes us less real." She paused, her eyes growing distant. "I was in a car accident 3 years ago. Drunk driver ran a red light. I was on my way home from celebrating a promotion, actually. Paramedics said I was lucky to survive, but for months I didn't feel very lucky. My fiancé left within 6 weeks. Couldn't handle the wheelchair, the physical therapy, the reality that I wasn't going to be the person he'd proposed to." Marcus felt something crack open in his chest. Not pity, but recognition. Here was someone who understood loss, who knew what it meant to rebuild yourself from ruins. "I'm sorry," he said, inadequate words for inadequate circumstances. "Don't be," Sophia replied, and her smile was fierce now, warrior-like. "It taught me what I was really made of. And it taught me that the right person wouldn't see the wheelchair first. They'd see me." The evening continued, courses appearing and disappearing as Marcus and Sophia lost themselves in conversation. She made him laugh, actually laugh, not the polite chuckle he'd perfected for work meetings, but real gasping laughter that drew looks from other tables. They debated everything from the best pizza toppings to whether schools adequately prepared kids for real life. Marcus found himself talking about his job as a high school guidance counselor, about the kids he tried to help navigate impossible circumstances. "Broken homes, impossible dreams. You see, people," Sophia observed, watching him with an intensity that made him feel simultaneously exposed and accepted. That's rare. Most people look but don't really see. It was nearly 10 o'clock when reality came crashing down. A man approached their table, tall, silver-haired, expensively suited, with an expression of confused anger that immediately put Marcus on alert. "Sophia?" the man said, ignoring Marcus entirely. "What are you doing here? Daniel called me 20 minutes ago, furious, saying you stood him up. He was waiting at a completely different table." Marcus watched Sophia's face transform as understanding dawned, followed quickly by hurt and something that might have been betrayal. She turned to him slowly, her voice carefully controlled. "You're not Daniel." It wasn't a question. Marcus felt his world tilting. No, I'm Marcus. I was waiting for my own blind date, and when you came to my table, I thought..." He stopped, because how could he explain an impulse that had made no sense even as he'd acted on it? "I'm sorry. I should have corrected you immediately, but you seemed nervous, and I was nervous, and then I didn't mean to deceive you?" The silver-haired man's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Do you have any idea who you've been sitting with?" His voice was low, threatening. "This is Sophia Lancaster. Her father is Richard Lancaster, CEO of Lancaster Industries. And you..." He looked Marcus up and down with obvious disdain. "You're some nobody who crashed a carefully arranged introduction with the VP of Lancaster's investment division." Marcus felt everything crumbling. He stood up, fumbling for his wallet. "I'll pay for dinner. Sophia, I'm truly sorry. That was unconscionable of me." But even as he apologized, even as shame burned through him, he couldn't help but notice that Sophia's expression wasn't quite what he expected. She wasn't looking at him with anger. She was looking at the silver-haired man with something closer to defiance. "Marcus, sit down," Sophia said quietly. When he hesitated, she added more firmly, "Please, sit down." She turned to the silver-haired man. "Thank you, James. You can tell my father that I'll handle this situation myself, and you can tell Daniel that I appreciate his time, but I won't be continuing with our introduction." James looked like he wanted to argue, but something in Sophia's tone, a subtle steel that suggested she was used to being obeyed, made him think better of it. He left with a final disapproving look at Marcus. The silence that followed felt enormous. Marcus sat slowly, waiting for the inevitable dismissal. Instead, Sophia started laughing. Not cruel laughter, but something genuine and slightly disbelieving. "This is insane," she said, wiping her eyes. "Absolutely insane. My father arranged that date, you know. Daniel was suitable, Harvard MBA, vice president at 38, from the right family. Dad's been arranging these introductions for 2 years now, ever since deciding that my accident shouldn't prevent me from making an advantageous match." Advantageous match, Marcus repeated, something clicking into place. Your father is Richard Lancaster? As in Lancaster Industries, the third largest manufacturing conglomerate on the East Coast? Sophia nodded, and for the first time that evening, Marcus saw genuine vulnerability in her eyes. That's why this was so perfect, you know. For 3 hours you didn't know. You talked to me about real things, about loss and fear and hope, because you didn't know who my father was or what my trust fund looks like. You just saw me. Marcus felt his throat tighten. I did see you. I do see you. And I'm sorry for the deception, but Sophia, tonight has been the first time since Sarah died that I've felt like myself. The first time I've talked to someone who made me feel like more than just Emma's dad or the counselor who helps troubled kids. You made me feel like Marcus again. They stared at each other across the table, the weight of honesty and possibility hanging between them. Finally, Sophia spoke. This is crazy. We literally met by accident based on a lie. In a scenario my father would consider his worst nightmare, his disabled daughter falling for a guidance counselor with a fraction of our family's wealth. Falling for? Marcus caught the word, his heart jumping. Sophia's cheeks colored slightly. I'm getting ahead of myself. But Marcus, I want to see you again. For real this time? No mistaken identities, no arranged introductions, just us. She paused, her expression growing serious. But you need to understand what that means. My father is protective to the point of controlling. He loves me, but he sees my disability as something that makes me more vulnerable, more in need of his management. Dating someone he hasn't vetted, someone from outside his carefully curated world of suitable matches, it won't be easy. Marcus thought of Emma, of the life they'd built together through grief and struggle, of the lessons he tried to teach her about courage and authenticity. I'm a single father working in public education, he said slowly. I live in a 3-bedroom house with a mortgage I'll be paying off for another 20 years. My idea of a big expense is taking Emma to a Broadway show for her birthday. Your world and mine aren't just different. They're practically on different planets. I know, Sophia said softly. But, Marcus continued, surprised by the certainty in his voice, tonight you made me feel something I thought I'd buried with Sarah. And if there's even a chance that this, whatever this is, could be real, then I want to take it. No matter how complicated, no matter how difficult, Sophia's smile was radiant. Then let me start by actually introducing myself. I'm Sophia Lancaster, and besides being the CEO's daughter, I'm the director of the Lancaster Foundation, which manages about $200 million in charitable giving annually, with a focus on disability rights and inclusive education. I'm also terrible at cooking, obsessed with trashy reality TV shows, and I've been terrified of dating since my accident because I couldn't separate pity from genuine interest. She extended her hand formally. It's truly a pleasure to meet you, Marcus. Marcus took her hand, feeling the absurdity and rightness of the moment. Marcus Chen, high school guidance counselor, mediocre cook, father to the most amazing teenage daughter who's probably texting her friends right now about how her dad is finally getting a life. Also, I apparently have terrible judgment when it comes to blind dates, but I'm hoping that works in my favor this time. They left the restaurant together, Marcus walking slowly beside Sophia's wheelchair as they navigated the crowded downtown sidewalk. The evening air was cool, filled with the sounds of the city, distant traffic, laughter from nearby bars, the eternal hum of lives intersecting and diverging in the metropolitan night. They talked about logistics, about how to navigate what came next. Marcus would meet Emma officially, would explain this bizarre situation to his daughter, who would probably find it hilarious. Sophia would face her father, would stand firm in her choice to pursue something real rather than something suitable. He'll hire a private investigator, Sophia warned. He'll find out everything about you. Credit score, parking tickets, probably interview your ex-girlfriends if he can track them down. Marcus laughed. Good luck with that. There haven't been any girlfriends since Sarah. Your father's investigator is going to be very bored. He paused, then added seriously, Sophia, I need you to know, I'm not interested in your money or your father's connections. I'm interested in the woman who spent 3 hours talking to me about everything that matters and nothing that doesn't. I know, Sophia said. That's why I'm interested in you. If this story has touched your heart, If it reminds you that the best things in life often come from unexpected places and honest moments, please take a second to like this video and share it with someone who needs to believe in second chances. Your engagement helps us share more stories like this. They reached the parking structure where both their cars were located. Marcus's aging Honda and Sophia's modified van with its hydraulic lift. Before they parted, Sophia touched his arm. "Marcus, thank you for sitting at the wrong table." "Thank you for not leaving when you found out I was the wrong person," he replied. "Maybe you weren't the wrong person," Sophia said softly. "Maybe you were exactly the right person at exactly the right table, and we just had to find each other through a little bit of chaos." If you believe in love that sees beyond surfaces, in connections that defy expectations, please take a moment to comment below with a heart emoji. Let us know this story moved you. 3 months later, Marcus would introduce Sophia to Emma over homemade pizza in their modest kitchen, and his daughter would immediately declare her basically the coolest person ever. 6 months later, Sophia would face down her father in his corner office, explaining calmly and firmly that Marcus wasn't leaving her life. That true love didn't require a suitable family tree or an impressive portfolio, that she'd survived a tragedy that should have killed her, and she refused to survive only to live. Half a life governed by fear and social expectations. Richard Lancaster would eventually come around, not because Marcus won him over with charm or changed who he was, but because he couldn't deny the light that had returned to his daughter's eyes, the confidence that had replaced her careful guardedness. And Marcus, for his part, would learn that love the second time around wasn't a betrayal of what he'd lost, but an honoring of it. Proof that Sarah's gift to him, their daughter and their years together, had made him capable of opening his heart again. But all of that was yet to come. On that October evening, Marcus Chen and Sophia Lancaster simply stood in a parking garage. Two people who'd found each other through cosmic coincidence and human imperfection, choosing to believe that sometimes sitting at the wrong table leads you to exactly the right place. They exchanged phone numbers, made plans for a proper first date where both of them knew exactly who they were meeting, and said goodnight with the kind of hope that only comes from unexpected second chances. As Marcus drove home to Emma, he couldn't stop smiling. Life, he thought, had the strangest way of working out. Not according to plan, not following the path you'd carefully mapped, but somehow, miraculously, leading you exactly where you needed to be. All you had to do was be brave enough to stay at the wrong table long enough to discover it was right all along.